What's going on?
Shh. Your mother and father think you haven't come in yet.
Hollywood has a rule book that nobody talks about out loud. Rule number 1, the show must go on. Rule number 2, when a star implodes, a cast member melts down, or a behind-the-scenes disaster threatens to derail everything, you don't tell the audience what actually happened. You write around it, you recast without explanation. You kill a character off in a conveniently timed car accident, and you pray nobody notices. Spoiler alert, we noticed. Hi, my name is Aaron, and this is Old TV Cinema. Number 12, Roseanne. 2 Beckys, 0 explanation. Let's ease into this list gently, shall we? Because number 12 is one of those situations where the show basically just hoped viewers were too distracted by the laugh track to ask obvious questions. Roseanne ran from 1988 to 1997 and was one of the most grounded, honest working-class comedies network television had ever produced. The Connor family felt real in a way that most sitcom families simply didn't. And for the first few seasons, everything behind the scenes was relatively stable. Relatively being the key word here. Lacey Goranson played Becky Connor, the eldest daughter, from the very beginning. She was dry, deadpan, and a perfect fit for the Connor family's particular brand of chaos. But by season 5, Goranson wanted to leave to attend college, which, good for her, honestly, education first. The problem was that the show wasn't about to write Becky out entirely, so what did they do? They brought in Sarah Chalke to play the exact same character. Same name, same family, same history. Just a completely different human being wearing Becky's clothes and hoping nobody would bring it up at Thanksgiving dinner. Here's where it gets genuinely strange. Goranson kept coming back periodically, meaning both actresses ended up playing Becky at different points, sometimes alternating between seasons. The show never once offered a single line of dialogue to explain why Becky Connor appeared to have 2 completely different faces depending on the episode. Eventually, Roseanne the show did what most shows in this situation refused to do. It made the joke. In later seasons, the recasting was acknowledged with a wink, which was very on brand for a series that never took itself too seriously. But for years, viewers were just expected to roll with it, and most of them did, which honestly says a lot about the power of a good laugh track. Number 11, Diff'rent Strokes, written out after real-life legal trouble. If you want a case study in how quickly a network will quietly shuffle a cast member off screen when things get legally complicated, look no further than Diff'rent Strokes, and the sad, complicated story of Dana Plato. Diff'rent Strokes ran from 1978 to 1986, and we have talked about this show before on this channel. It followed Arnold and Willis Jackson, 2 kids from Harlem, adopted by a wealthy Manhattan businessman named Philip Drummond. Gary Coleman was the breakout star, obviously. But Dana Plato, as Kimberly Drummond, was a genuine part of the show's heart in its earlier seasons. By season 6, Plato became pregnant, which the show's producers handled with all the grace and compassion of a network executive reading a quarterly earnings report. She was quietly written out. Kimberly was shipped off to Paris for school, which is the 1980s television equivalent of putting someone in a box and mailing them to another continent, out of sight, out of storyline. The tragic reality is that Plato was struggling in ways that went far beyond what any network publicist wanted, associated with a family-friendly sitcom. She faced financial difficulties, legal troubles, and personal demons that were deeply real and deeply serious. And rather than finding any creative way to support her or work with her situation, the show simply made Kimberly disappear with the kind of efficiency that would impress a magician. She appeared in only a handful of episodes after her return from the Paris storyline, and by the time Diff'rent Strokes wrapped up its run, Kimberly Drummond had essentially been written out of her own family. Dana Plato passed away in 1999, and her story remains one of the most heartbreaking examples of what happened to young actors when the cameras stopped rolling and the network stopped caring. Number 10, Bewitched, the original Darren, just became a different person. Okay, I want you to imagine something. You sit down to watch your favorite show. The husband character walks through the door, and he's just a completely different man. Different face, different voice, different everything. And your family just says, "Hi, honey, welcome home, how was work?" As if nothing in the world is unusual about any of this. That is what Bewitched did in 1969. and the audacity of it still makes me laugh to this day. Dick York played Darren Stevens, the mortal husband of witch Samantha, from the show's premiere in 1964 all the way through season 5. York was charming and genuinely funny, and his chemistry with Elizabeth Montgomery made the show work. But behind the scenes, York was suffering from a serious back injury that dated back to a film set accident years earlier. The pain had become completely unmanageable, and in 1969, he had to leave the show. Enter Dick Sargent. Same character, same name, same wife, same house, same nosy neighbor Gladys Kravitz peering through the window. Totally different Darren. Now, here's what absolutely floors me about this one. The show ran for 3 more seasons with Dick Sargent in the role, from 1969 to 1972, and the official position of everyone involved appeared to be that there was simply nothing to discuss. No explanation was ever given to viewers. No in-universe reason was offered. Darren Stevens just came home one day looking like a completely different human being, and Samantha didn't even blink. I will give Bewitched this much, though. The two Darrens have become such a legendary piece of television trivia that the recast arguably made the show more famous than it might have been otherwise. Sometimes the cover-up becomes the story. Number 9. The Cosby Show. How the show quietly started distancing itself. This one is uncomfortable, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But if we're making a list about television shows that use fictional storylines to paper over real-life problems, we cannot skip The Cosby Show and what happened in its later seasons. The Cosby Show ran from 1984 to 1992, and was, for a significant stretch of its run, the most watched program on American television. We have covered it multiple times on this channel. It was groundbreaking in ways that still matter. And the cast around Bill Cosby, Felicia Rashad, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Tempest Bledsoe, Keshia Knight Pulliam, all of them were genuinely talented people doing genuinely good work. Here's what's documented and worth discussing from a television history perspective. By the late 1980s, whispers about Cosby's off-screen behavior had begun circulating in industry circles. Nothing had become public in a significant way yet, but the atmosphere around the production was shifting. What the show did in its final seasons was interesting. It began moving storylines further and further away from Cliff Huxtable as a central presence in family scenes, redistributing screen time, expanding the supporting cast significantly, and introducing new characters like Pam Tucker, who we have talked about before, in ways that seemed designed to build something that could potentially stand without its lead. Whether this was conscious distancing or simply standard late-run storytelling adjustments, television historians have debated for years. What is undeniable is that by the time the show ended its run in 1992, it looked noticeably different from the show that had premiered 8 years earlier. The full weight of what had been quietly known in certain Hollywood circles would not become public knowledge for many more years, and when it did, it reframed everything. Number 8. Good Times, killed off in a car crash after speaking his mind. Now this one, I genuinely love telling people about, because it is one of the most blatant examples of a network using a fictional storyline as a direct response to a real-life personality conflict. And they did not even try to be subtle about it. Good Times ran from 1974 to 1979. We have covered John Amos leaving this show in our Stars, Who Walked Away video. So if you haven't seen that one, check it out after this. But the full story deserves a deeper look in this context. John Amos played James Evans Sr., the hardworking, deeply principled patriarch of the Evans family. He was the emotional backbone of the show, the reason the comedy had weight. Without James Evans, Good Times was just a collection of jokes floating in the air with nothing to anchor them. The problem, from the producer's perspective, was that Amos was also very vocal about what he believed the show was doing wrong. He was frustrated with the increasing reliance on Jimmy Walker's JJ character and that famous catchphrase, which I'm sure you know. He felt the show was drifting away from its original mission of portraying a real, complex Black American family and sliding toward cartoonish, broad comedy that he believed did more harm than good. He said this out loud to people in Hollywood, which, as we have established, is rule number 1 of what you simply do not do. So, in 1976, the producers killed James Evans off-screen in a car accident in Mississippi. Not a retirement, not a transfer for work. A car accident, off-screen, between episodes, One week James Evans was there, the next week he was gone forever. And Florida Evans delivered one of the most gut-wrenching reactions in sitcom history. The show never fully recovered. Amos was right about what made it work, which is perhaps the cruelest part of the whole story. Number 7. One Day at a Time. Addiction, written around, not addressed. We touched on this one briefly in our Disappeared Characters video, but the full picture of what happened with the Mackenzie Phillips and One Day at a Time is a story about a real person fighting an enormously difficult battle while a television show tried to figure out how to keep pretending everything was fine. One Day at a Time ran from 1975 to 1984. Phillips played Julie Cooper, the eldest daughter of single mom, Anne Romano. She was fiery and complicated and genuinely compelling to watch. And for a show that prided itself on tackling real issues with honesty, the way it handled Phillips' situation off camera was a masterclass in looking the other way. Phillips was fired after season 5 due to substance abuse issues that were affecting production. She was brought back in season 7, then dismissed again early in the final season following a relapse. And the way the show wrote around all of this is fascinating from a pure television mechanics standpoint. Julie would simply not be in episodes for stretches of time. When she did appear, her storylines were written to require minimal scenes and minimal interaction with the rest of the cast. Her marriage, her pregnancy, her entire life was handled in the vaguest possible terms. A passing mention here, a letter there, the implication that Julie was somewhere, doing something, and everything was probably fine. The irony is that One Day at a Time was the kind of show that did very special episodes about real issues. Drug addiction was an unfamiliar topic in that writer's room, but when the addiction was happening to one of their own cast members in real life, the response was not a storyline. It was silence, followed by a very small mention, followed by more silence. Number 6. Valerie, killed off and replaced, while the show kept her name. If number 11 was a story about quiet exits, number 6 is a story about a scorched earth exit that the producers tried very hard to spin as business as usual. It was not business as usual. It was one of the most brazenly petty moves in 1980s network television. And I mean that almost admiringly. Valerie premiered in 1986 with Valerie Harper in the title role, playing Valerie Hogan, the slightly neurotic and deeply lovable mother of 3 boys, including a young Jason Bateman. We covered the salary dispute side of this story in our Stars, Who Left Hit Show's video. But let's talk about what the show actually did with its fictional storyline when things fell apart. When Harper's salary demands were rejected and she was fired, the producers faced a choice: end the show, recast the role, or do something so audacious that people would be talking about it for decades. They chose option 3. They killed Valerie Hogan off-screen in a car accident. Are you noticing a pattern with the car accidents? Because I am absolutely noticing a pattern with the car accidents. This was 1987, and apparently the television industry had a standing agreement with fictional automobiles to eliminate inconvenient cast members. Then they brought in Sandy Duncan as the boys' Aunt Sandy, renamed the show The Hogan Family, and just kept going. Valerie Harper sued for wrongful termination and breach of contract and won a multi-million-dollar settlement. So at least the story has something approaching a satisfying ending, even if the show itself tried to pretend that its entire premise had never existed. What makes this one particularly remarkable is the combination of the fictional death, the immediate replacement, and the show continuing under a modified version of the original title. It was like the producers were determined to use every single tool available to them to make Valerie Harper's departure feel like a minor inconvenience rather than the total creative upheaval it actually was. Number 5. Growing Pains. King's members fired because a star found God. Okay, so this one requires a little setup, because if you only know the surface version of this story, you might think it's just a behind-the-scenes personality conflict. But the full picture is genuinely one of the strangest chapters in 1990s network television. Growing Pains ran from 1985 to 1992 on ABC. We talked about Leo DiCaprio joining in the final season in our Cousin Oliver Syndrome video. But years before Leo showed up with his floppy hair and his raw talent, something much more unusual was happening with the show's established cast. Kirk Cameron, who played teen heartthrob Mike Seaver, had become a devoted evangelical Christian during the show's run, which is entirely his personal right, and we are not here to debate anyone's faith. But what happened next is firmly in the territory of television history. Cameron reportedly became increasingly uncomfortable with storylines and guest appearances. He felt conflicted with his beliefs. And here's where things get genuinely extraordinary. Cameron took issue with a recurring actress on the show named Julie McCullough, who had previously appeared in a magazine spread that Cameron felt was inappropriate. He reportedly pushed for her character to be written off the show. McCullough was fired. Her character, Mike Seaver's girlfriend, was written out with an explanation so thin you could practically see through it. And the show restructured its storytelling around Cameron's growing list of concerns about content. The producers, rather than confronting the situation directly, made fictional adjustments to accommodate real-life demands. Mike Seaver gradually became less of a mischievous teen and more of a character whose storylines were steered carefully around a minefield of topics. The show's tone shifted in ways that felt slightly off to viewers who couldn't quite put their finger on why. Now you know why. Number 4. NYPD Blue. One season, one ego, one disaster. We have talked about David Caruso leaving NYPD Blue before on this channel, but what I want to focus on here is specifically how the show handled his exit in fictional terms, because it is a genuinely elegant piece of television writing that was forced into existence entirely by off-screen circumstances. NYPD Blue premiered in 1993 and was immediately groundbreaking. Gritty, raw, pushing the absolute boundaries of what network television would allow. David Caruso as Detective John Kelly was the show's breakout star. His intensity was magnetic. His dramatic pauses were, let's say, a creative choice that audiences either loved or found deeply hilarious depending on their mood. But after one season, Caruso decided he was done. He wanted movie stardom. He walked away from what was genuinely one of the best dramas on television to pursue a film career that did not go the way he planned. We covered what happened to those films in our Stars, who left hit shows video, and let's just say the box office was not kind. The challenge for the NYPD Blue writers was how to write out a character who had been positioned as the emotional center of the show without it feeling like a gaping wound in the middle of the series. What they did was actually impressive. They gave Detective Kelly a complete arc in his final episode, Dead and Gone, in Season 2. That felt genuinely earned. Kelly made a choice that cost him his badge and walked away from the precinct on his own terms. It was good television. It was dramatically satisfying. And it was written entirely because a real person made a real-life decision based on real-life ego, and the writing staff had to scramble to make that decision look like it belonged to the character instead. Jimmy Smits stepped in as Bobby Simone, and many fans would argue the show actually got better, which must have been a very specific kind of painful for David Caruso to watch from a movie set that wasn't working out. Number 3. Saved by the Bell. 2 characters vanished mid-season, with zero explanation. We are going to talk about the Tori episodes. And if you were a Saturday morning television devotee in the early 1990s, those 2 words just triggered something in the back of your brain. Something uncomfortable, something that felt wrong at the time, and still feels wrong. Saved by the Bell was Saturday morning royalty from 1989 through 1993. Zach, Kelly, Slater, Jesse, Lisa, and Screech were Bayside High. The whole ensemble worked because of the specific chemistry between those 6 people. Remove any one of them, and the whole thing shifts in a way you can feel, even if you can't explain it. So, what happened when Tiffany Thiessen, who played Kelly Kapowski, and Elizabeth Berkley, who played Jessie Spano, had contract disputes with the producers? What was the official creative response to 2 of the show's 6 lead characters being temporarily unavailable? They introduced a new character named Tori Scott, played by Leanna Creel, a leather-jacketed biker girl who absolutely nobody asked for, and they just kept going. Kelly and Jesse weren't sick. They weren't at a family event. They weren't studying abroad. They were simply not there. And nobody at Bayside High mentioned them at all for 10 full episodes. This was not a graceful pivot. This was the television equivalent of a stage magician dropping their wand mid-trick and just staring at the audience with complete confidence that if they maintained eye contact, nobody would bring up what just happened. The truly disorienting part is that when Kelly and Jesse came back for the graduation episodes, Tori simply disappeared without a single word of farewell. She had existed. She had dated Zach. She had been part of the group, and then she was erased from the Bayside universe as cleanly and completely as if someone had used a very efficient fictional pencil eraser. The Tori episodes remain one of the purest examples of a show using its own storytelling to quietly hide a contract dispute it did not want to discuss publicly. Number 2, that 70s show. The finale nearly had no leads. That 70s show ran from 1998 to 2006, which just barely puts its finale in the window we cover on this channel. And look, I know some of you are already composing a comment about the exact dates. I appreciate the commitment to accuracy. We do our research here at Old TV Cinema, but this story is too good to leave off this list. The show followed a group of teenagers in Point Place, Wisconsin, navigating the 1970s with an ensemble cast that had genuinely remarkable chemistry. Topher Grace as Eric Foreman was the heart of the show, and Ashton Kutcher as Kelso was, to put it generously, the group's most aerodynamic thinker. By the end of season 7, Topher Grace decided to leave the show to pursue a film career. Sound familiar? It should. We covered this pattern earlier on this list, and apparently it was contagious in Hollywood during this era. Eric Foreman was written out by being sent to Africa, which the show presented as a logical character decision, and which I personally find hilarious. Because Eric Foreman, the guy who built a Death Star out of Legos, is going to go find himself on another continent. Then, before the final season could fully establish itself without Grace, Ashton Kutcher also departed to focus on his film career. So the show that had been built on the chemistry of its ensemble now had to limp through its final season, missing 2 of its 6 core cast members. The fictional explanations were thin. Kelso would just drop in occasionally when Kutcher was available, which created a storytelling rhythm that felt more like scheduling logistics than actual character work. And the introduction of Randy, played by Josh Myers, to fill the Eric-shaped hole in the group was received by fans with that's the kind of warmth you might expect to greet a stranger who shows up at your Thanksgiving dinner and starts sitting in your uncle's chair. The final episode brought Eric back for a brief appearance that felt more like a contractual obligation than a genuine creative reunion. The show deserved better, the remaining cast deserved better, and Randy honestly deserved to be on a different show, where he wasn't constantly being measured against someone else's absence. Number 1, the Dukes of Hazzard. Bo and Luke were replaced by cousins. Viewers noticed immediately. And here we are. The one that started more arguments in elementary school cafeterias than any television decision of the 1980s. The number 1 spot on our list of television shows that faked storylines to cover up real-life scandals goes to the Dukes of Hazzard and the absolutely spectacular miscalculation of replacing Bo and Luke Duke with their never-before-mentioned cousins, Coy and Vance. The Dukes of Hazzard ran from 1979 to 1985 on CBS and was one of the most purely entertaining action comedy series of its era. The General Lee, Boss Hogg, Daisy Duke, Uncle Jesse, the whole package. John Schneider as Bo Duke and Tom Wopat as Luke Duke were the beating heart of the show. They were charming, they were funny, and their rapport felt completely effortless. But in 1982, Schneider and Wopat walked away from the show in a dispute over merchandising royalties. This was not a small thing. The Dukes of Hazzard had generated an almost incomprehensible amount of merchandise. General Lee toy cars alone were reportedly selling in numbers that made the producers a great deal of money. Schneider and Wopat felt they deserved a share of that revenue. The studio disagreed, and so Bo and Luke Duke were suddenly unavailable. The show's solution was to introduce Coy Duke and Vance Duke, played by Byron Cherry and Christopher Mayer, as cousins who had apparently existed this entire time without ever once being mentioned in 4 seasons of television. The storyline explanation was that Bo and Luke had gone off to pursue NASCAR racing careers, which is actually not the worst cover story I have ever heard. But it is also not good enough to explain why 2 completely different men are now driving the General Lee. Viewers did not accept this. The ratings dropped immediately and significantly. Fan mail poured into CBS in quantities that made the network's position difficult to maintain. The merchandising dispute was settled, and Bo and Luke returned midway through season 5. Coy and Vance disappeared with even less explanation than they had arrived with, just gone. Back to wherever cousins go when the actual stars resolve their contract situation. What makes this the #1 entry on this list is the sheer scale of the attempted deception. This was not a quiet recast or a gently adjusted storyline. This was a network looking at 2 missing lead characters and saying with complete confidence that the audience would accept brand new people as a reasonable substitution. They were wrong. And the speed with which viewers rejected that premise is one of the most decisive audience verdicts in the history of the medium. Bo and Luke Duke were irreplaceable. CBS found that out the hard way. And the brief, strange, fascinating era of Coy and Vance Duke remains one of the most audacious cover-up attempts in television history. And that is our list. 12 television shows that used fictional storylines, quiet recasts, convenient car accidents, and suspiciously timed character exits to paper over real-life chaos that the networks did not want you thinking too hard about. Here is my question for you this week. Which one of these shocked you the most? Was it the sheer nerve of Coy and Vance Duke, the way Good Times handled John Amos, or maybe the Tory episodes, which I maintain are one of the great unsolved mysteries of Saturday morning television? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one of them. If you enjoyed this one, you are going to love our videos on disappeared characters and stars who walked away from hit shows. Links are in the description. Give this video a like if it brought back some memories. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what we have coming up next. And tap that notification bell because we drop new content regularly and you do not want to be the last one to find out. This is Old TV Cinema. My name is Aaron, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.